Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update video today. We'll have a bit of a chat about what is happening in Spain at the moment. We'll go into the press and check out what is happening there. And then at the end of the video, we'll have a look at some of the comments left on yesterday's video. Now, plenty of news around today. The Prime Minister has spoken. He addressed the Parliament this morning. In fact, I think it's still going on. And he explained to the nation his reasons for pardoning those Catalonian separatist leaders last week. And he also promised that there will not be a referendum on self-determination in Catalonia. He said that his party, the Socialist Party, would never accept one. Now, we saw last week when those people were released from prison that one of the first things that they said is that they are going to start pushing for another referendum in Catalonia. They said that there was no way that they were going to give this fight up and they would continue to push for an independent Catalonia. And I think some people thought that that might have been part of the deal to release those prisoners last week, that the central government might sit down with the independence leaders and start talking about a referendum, but Sánchez this morning completely ruling this out. But I imagine that this whole independence process in Catalonia is just starting to warm up, and we'll see how it plays out in coming months and years. Now, the Mallorcan macro COVID outbreak is still making headlines, and the incidence rate of COVID-19 continues to rise around the country. We saw yesterday that there are some 250 young people quarantining in a luxury hotel in Mallorca, and that hotel is today making headlines for another reason. As we can see from this headline, confinement in the COVID hotel in Mallorca, music, alcohol and police visits in the early hours of the morning. And local police are investigating if nearby businesses are supplying alcohol to these young people in the hotel by giving it to them on the balconies. So the story in Mallorca continues to develop. We saw yesterday that a group of parents whose children are in that hotel are not happy that their children are being forced to quarantine there. They believe that the Mallorcan government has no right to keep their kids in that hotel. And I think earlier today the Mallorcan justice system came out and said that they also oppose those students being in the hotel. So another tricky situation for the Mallorcan government. And as I said a minute ago, the incidence rate here in Spain continues to go up. And in places like the Valencian community, where it has been low for some time now, case numbers are on the rise there as well. This headline here sums the situation up in Valencia. The explosive cocktail that has caused cases to shoot up in the region with the lowest COVID incidence rate in Spain. After months of being a low-risk zone, the epidemiological situation in the Valencian community has changed in a matter of days, with the end of the curfew and the end of the school year coinciding, and a reopening of leisure establishments. And unfortunately, this is the case not only in Valencia. We saw yesterday that places like Cantabria have also had an upturn in cases recently, and in Madrid also numbers are going up. And the incidence rate for some of the younger age groups here in Spain, for example the 20 to 29 age group, is now over the 250 mark per 100,000 people for the last 14 days. So, is this increase in the amount of cases here in Spain going to change government criteria when it comes to rules and regulations here in Spain? Are we going to be forced to wear a mask outdoors again everywhere we go here in Spain? Are they going to bring in more restrictions when it comes to bars and restaurants? I don't know. Time will tell. One article that caught my attention this morning is this one here. More cases but without hospital admissions and deaths. Is it time to change how we measure the pandemic? And according to somebody quoted in this article, the situation is nothing to be worried about. So should the government start to change the way they measure the impact of COVID-19 here in Spain, perhaps not pay too much attention to incidence rates and focus on hospital admissions and deaths? Those are the questions that that particular article is putting forward, and we'll see if the government changes its criteria or not. Now we'll go into the English version of El País because there's an article there about the antivirus guru John McAfee, who was found dead in a prison cell last week in Barcelona. And we can see here that autopsy confirms death of John McAfee in Barcelona prison was suicide. According to sources who spoke to El País, the 75-year-old antivirus creator had a note in his pocket when he was found dead in his cell last Wednesday. So the autopsy there confirming that the cause of McAfee's death was suicide. And I imagine that's bad news for people who thought his death was another conspiracy. Now let's go into the comment section and check out what is happening there. And we'll have a look at this one here from Ken. Hello Stuart from California. I have seen your video and others saying that as of last week, US residents only need to show a vaccination card and a negative PCR or antigen test is no longer required. However, there is absolutely nothing on the Spanish government websites that confirm this, so I am still planning on having to shell out about $150 2 times for this and sweat it that the results come in on time as the window is so short. Has to be less than 72 hours old. You can't complete the form to get the QR code until 48 hours before departure. What a mess. This is a trip from last year that got cancelled due to COVID. This will be my 4th time in Spain, but my 1st time in Madrid. I love your dry sense of humour and how you deal with negative comments. Can I buy you a beer while I am there? Yeah, Ken, thanks for the comment, and absolutely you can buy me a beer, but I don't know if I'm going to be here on the 17th of July. And when it comes to US citizens travelling to Spain and what is needed, if we go to the US Embassy here in Spain, we can see country-specific information. Effective June 24th, 2021, US citizens can travel from the United States to Spain if they present upon arrival in Spain a QR code generated through the Spain Travel Health Portal, obtained through the website or by downloading the SPTH app. There is no requirement to bring proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test if you are travelling from the United States to Spain. However, this may change with short notice, so be sure to review this information as close as possible to your travel date. This applies to US citizens travelling to Spain from the United States, including if they transit through a third country. So there we go, fairly clear according to that embassy website. But as they said, things can change quickly, so better to check that information on a weekly basis. And you're right, all of these requirements are a bit of a mess, but it is what it is, and it's the process that we all have to go through, unfortunately, if we want to travel. One here from the Smiths. Meanwhile in England, only 30 at a wedding, 9 at a funeral, but 45,000 at a football game. COVID sure is peculiar who it infects. Yeah, thanks for the comment. I did notice that there were quite a few people at that football game yesterday. England's victory over Germany, 2-0 I think it was, and didn't people get excited when those goals were scored? I also noticed that there were quite a few people at Wimbledon watching the tennis, not sure what the capacity is there, but quite a few people packed into the stands. But I had no idea that there were still restrictions on how many people could attend weddings and funerals in England. So it does seem a bit strange that people can go to these mass events like football games and tennis matches, but you can't have more than 30 people at your wedding. But let's be honest, this is not the first rule or regulation that has surprised people over the last 18 months. One here from World Traveller. Stuart, as a Canadian planning a 2-week visit to Spain, my 4th visit, may I ask how the hospital fraternity handles foreigners should they be struck down by COVID? It has been suggested that we may not be a priority. Yeah, World Traveller, thanks for the comment. I don't think that there would be a problem at hospitals here in Spain for foreign travellers. Of course, it all depends on how busy the hospitals are. If they collapse like they did earlier in the year, then there may be a bit of a problem. But if that is not the case and you are unlucky enough to come down with COVID while you are here, I don't think you would have a problem being seen to. Hospital staff here in Spain, in my experience, are very, very good. I've never heard any stories about hospitals here in Spain discriminating between locals and foreigners, so I don't think you've got anything to be worried about unless the hospitals are full, and currently, and fortunately, that is not the case. One here from Debbie. Wow, 4-star hotel. How do I get to Mallorca? Yeah, Debbie, thanks for the comment. Obviously referring to that 4-star luxury accommodation there in Mallorca that is known as the COVID Hotel, where those 250 students are being forced to quarantine. And it does seem to be a very nice hotel. I think it's the only hotel in Mallorca that's being used for that purpose, but there are other hotels around the country that are being used for that reason. There are some in Madrid, some in Barcelona, and I imagine that every big city here in Spain has a similar hotel. So if you can use the pool and the other facilities of that hotel, I wouldn't mind staying there. One here from Carmen. Is the Janssen vaccine the same as the Johnson & Johnson one jab only, which is one of the 3 in use here in the US? Thanks for the great update, Stuart. I plan to head to Spain and Portugal 3 weeks from today and stay almost a month, hoping that the situation doesn't get bad while I'm there. Don't want to have difficulty getting back to Los Angeles, California. Stay well, everyone. Yeah, Carmen, that is the case. The Janssen vaccine is produced by Johnson & Johnson, I believe, and it is the only 1-dose vaccine currently being used here in Spain. All of the rest, Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, are 2-dose vaccines, so with Janssen you avoid that waiting time between vaccinations. And good luck with your trip in 3 weeks' time to Spain and Portugal. I don't think you're going to have too much trouble travelling around Spain and Portugal this summer. Both countries, as we know, are currently open to tourists, and I don't think a country like Spain is going to shut down in the middle of the tourist season. So have a good trip. And finally, one here from George. Much appreciated, Stu, for the updates in Spain. My girlfriend and I, based in London, have been considering a trip to Southern Europe this summer, but with the Delta variant spreading, it looks like restrictions, tests, and hysteria will be a key theme throughout places like Spain and Portugal this summer. Not to mention the Germans trying to force quarantine measures on all Brits coming into the EU. It doesn't look great. In all reality, staying in the UK is probably our best bet at the moment. Sad how times have got, and let's hope that eventually the situation goes back to normal. But you wonder now, with these cases making the news all the time, how long that might take. Hopefully sooner than how long it has taken England to finally beat Germany again in the knockout stages of an international competition. Yeah, George, thanks for the comment, and I did see that it was the first time that England had beaten Germany in a major competition in quite a while. And you're right, for many people, a trip to Southern Europe this year seems a little bit too complicated. Probably better to stay at home, have a staycation, as they say. And there is still, unfortunately, quite a lot of hysteria when it comes to case numbers here in Spain. As I said in the reply to that previous comment, I don't think Spain is going to close this summer because they need tourism, and the cases that are being reported at the moment are mainly among the younger generations, and hospital admissions and deaths are fortunately not seeing an increase at the moment. And you're right, the Germans are pushing for a mandatory quarantine on all people from the UK travelling to the European Union this summer. Ms. Merkel is going hard on that, and I also read yesterday that they're trying to lobby UEFA to reduce crowd sizes at football games in the UK. So we'll see if the Germans get their way. On that note, I'll wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the video out as you normally do. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.